everyone, and welcome back to Oh That Girl Reads, where we read what we love and DNF the rest. I am that girl, Bria, and today I am back with you after a very, very long hiatus. I am so sorry I've been gone for so long. I don't even know what to say. I don't I don't even know where to begin with it. Just know that I really do love this podcast. I've loved what I created. I've loved every single author, every single supporter, every single guest that I've had for and on this podcast. I think for me, I went through this really terrible depression, one that I've never experienced in my life before. It was kind of insane. I because I deal with depression, right? But it's always been functional. Like I've always been able to function, get through things, get things done, like keep on moving. But this was the first depression that I've had that one has lasted so long. It was about maybe 6 months. But not only did it last that long, but it also just completely debilitated me. And I couldn't do anything. I was surprised that I was actually making it to work and making it to work on time. That's how bad it was at that point. But I'm back. I'm feeling so much better. I'm feeling so much more like myself. And yeah, and then after that depression, I actually spent some time in the hospital for an ear infection. It turned into cellulitis. It was really bad, but it was actually in the hospital that I kind of got my momentum with reading a little bit again. I was in such a slump, not only because of the depression, but I also think like I just wasn't really feeling what I was reading lately. And I kind of changed my approach recently when it comes to reading. I've been reading a lot more graphic novels and juvenile fiction. And I feel like that's completely changed, you know, my view of reading and my approach to reading. It was a reminder that reading is supposed to be joyful for me, and that just because, my peers are reading some things, it doesn't mean that I also need to read those things just to stay like topical and relevant and things like that. Like that has never been my approach to reading. Reading was always all about me. And so I'm trying to keep it that way, trying to keep it cute. But yeah, I'm back. It's been so long. I mean, how are you guys? How have you been doing? How has it been treating you? I mean, I've been seeing on Book Talk and things like that everyone's had a little bit more of a struggle time when it comes to reading slumps. Maybe it was just like the season, the summer, but honestly, whenever I go through like a really bad reading slump, the thing that I want to do is I want to just get active. I want to get outside, and I know for me that reading comes in phases. Like it's not always about like reading all the time. And I don't think that you constantly reading makes you a reader. I think your enjoyment of reading makes you a reader. No, I feel like for me, like the focus on quantity and how often is never really helpful for me, because sometimes a book isn't just hitting it for you. You know what I'm saying? So I've fallen into this new category for me where I'm reading both like graphic novels and a lot of self-help books. Here. So right now I have like two main focus books that I've been really hooked on, and the first one is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I mean, everyone talks about this. The people who have been doing the 75 hard challenge, which I have opinions on as a person, but people who do like the 75 hard challenge really always like read this as their 10 pages a day for nonfiction, which I think is really good. I actually took that approach from the 75 hard, where I would just take this like 10 pages at a time, and I'm still working through it. Again, the depression hit me, so I haven't been reading this as often. I was in a really good routine where I would wake up, I would drink some water, maybe have a coffee, do yoga with Adrienne. I was doing her 30-day challenge that she usually does at the beginning of the year. So I was doing that. I would read 10 pages of this. I would hang out outside. I would come in, take a shower, get dressed, get ready for the day. I felt like I lived like a whole life when in the morning when I was reading this, and it kind of helped because it created those habits for me. But I think something that I really learned through moving through that depression was that sometimes like life really sweeps you up, and sometimes you're going to have to reestablish certain habits. These habits, they are going to be a lifelong practice. It's going to be a lifelong thing of trying to figure out how to keep on track. And every day there's small decisions that can contribute to those habits. And so for me, when I was like, okay, I lost all my habits, I lost all of the hard work that I've been doing, with this process, I was so hard on myself. And then I realized, I was like, you know what? It's not necessarily about getting back to where I was before going to the hospital. It's about moving forward. It's about reintegrating those habits into my life. So I started off by going dancing with my friend Tyler, and that was so much fun. I've never had so many dances while going out with someone before. And I had repeat dances. I felt like such a good dancer. I was having fun. I was smiling. I was engaged. It was such a good vibrational evening. And I had so much fun with her. Like, she was getting so many dances in. She seemed so happy. We tried this nasty drink that they had for the night. And I think it was literally going in with that mindset, not going in with the mindset of like, oh, I need to be who I was. But yeah, that was basically the gist of Atomic Habits, was reestablishing those habits and taking it step by step, introducing one thing at a time. So that's kind of like my mentality. So that's one book that I've been kind of dealing with lately. And then another book that I've been following slowly but surely. This is going to be a little bit longer of a process. So this book is not necessarily about finishing it, but about establishing the things that are happening with it. This is Tiffanie Aliche's The Budgetistas Get Good with Money. Now, I have been trying to pay down debt for a very long time. I think most of us in America has some sort of credit card debt. And I've been trying to pay mine down for a little bit. Now I'm at the point where I kind of have consistent income. I can be a little bit more predictable with what things are happening. So I've been following her steps. It's been very good so far. What I really appreciate is her Google spreadsheet budgeting system that she kind of has. It's just like a spreadsheet of what comes in, what comes out. It's easy for me to keep track of, like, okay, so in this category, I want to spend this much. In this category, I want to spend this much. And this is where it all fits within the budget. And then on top of that, I use Asia Dang's financial planner to kind of work in tandem with Get Good with Money as well as that spreadsheet. So I think that's been going pretty well so far. Another nonfiction, but this is kind of what introduced me to the whole graphic novel approach of reading and getting back into reading. That was actually Genderqueer, a memoir by Maia Kobabe. This was great. This was actually a very, very great experience to kind of go into, to kind of learn more about what it means to be non-binary. I know that's something that's a part of my identity that I've been kind of thinking more about and kind of meditating on. I kind of threw that out of my brain because I think the other expression of my sexuality is what kind of pivoted me into the depression in the first place. So I decided that now that I'm out of the depression, we're just going to leave myself alone mentally when it comes to that. We're just going to feel my way through a lot of things. But I highly recommend Genderqueer. I do want to do a full mini podcast, which is something that I do need to talk to you guys about, kind of introducing that, just kind of reviewing this and kind of going deep down into what I have been thinking and exploring when it comes to queer literature, and then also specifically lesbian graphic novels. Apparently in the YA juvenile section, there's a lot of lesbian graphic novels, or at least sapphic graphic novels. One that I've read recently that blew me completely away was The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich. Let me see who the author is. Oh yes, The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich by Deya Muniz. Literally the cutest, most perfect little graphic novel ever. I wish I had it as a physical copy, because I read it on my Kindle and I have it in black and white, so I miss out on the colors. But I'm thinking that I'm going to buy my own physical copy of it, because this was such a treat of a read. I loved it so much. And even without the color of the graphic novel, I had such a good time. It was such a sweet story. It was kind of that, kind of set in that olden day time where, you know, they had the specific rules about who could inherit estates, and our main character, her father is dying, and her father's like, okay, fine, you don't have to marry a guy, but if you're not going to marry a guy, you're going to have to pretend to be one. And so that's how she gets to inherit the state. She moves to a different kingdom, and that's where she meets this princess. And you just go through the whole journey with the two of them, watching them fall in love, watching them kind of navigate like what it means to love somebody, and then building friendships and being successful as women, and just the whole like undertone of empowerment for women as well as for lesbian characters is amazing, and I loved it. I also read Most Ardently. That is not a graphic novel, but that is by Gabe Cole. I can't read the, it's not showing the full last name. But that's Most Ardently, and that is a Pride and Prejudice retelling. And I have to say, I did enjoy it, but at the same time, it made me realize that I don't actually like Pride and Prejudice. I always thought like I like the movies, but it didn't occur to me that the reason why I didn't like Pride and Prejudice wasn't necessarily because like, or I didn't finish Pride and Prejudice wasn't necessarily because like I lost focus or I just got distracted by something else. I think the story literally bores me. If you think about it, like they're just bouncing from house to house and going outside and drinking tea and talking. Like there's not much going on there. And so when I was reading Most Ardently, I was like, why is it taking me so many tries to read this book even though I really want to finish this book? Like I tried so hard. Like I was like, I want to read this transgender retelling of Pride and Prejudice so bad, but for some fucking reason, I'm not finishing it, and I don't understand why. And it's because, in conclusion, Pride and Prejudice itself is very boring, and thus the retelling was also pretty boring at parts. But I think that element of our main character being transgender, of them exploring things about themselves, of them essentially finding ways to communicate these things to their family, to his friends, like his safety, his discovering himself, him falling in love is like, that's what made it interesting. And there was enough of it that I stayed with the story. But to be honest, like if it was just a regular retelling of Pride and Prejudice, I really wouldn't care. I I really wouldn't care. There's this other book, Protest and Prejudice, I think. Yeah. I opened one page of that and I was like, absolutely not. I don't care. I absolutely do not care. So yeah, so that's me. I'm definitely not a Pride and Prejudice person. So that's basically what's been kind of going on in my reading zone. Oh, I also got a ARC review copy from Terreece M. Clarke. She's been on the podcast before for her other book, Chaser, and she came out with her new book. I believe it was July. It was like mid-July that she came out with her new book, Fingertips, and I had the privilege of being sent a review copy. I will be making a little mini Sunday episode for that coming up on this Sunday, and let me explain a little bit about these little mini episodes to you. So basically, I figured that like I love having the main episodes just to kind of talk and chat and catch up and just be silly, but I also want to give a lot of attention to individual books at one time. And so I figured what I would do is that I would choose like a book to just really focus on a Sunday and do just like a little book review of that. Now, of course, that is dependent on reading slumps and how fast I'm reading. So the Sunday episodes might not be as consistent, but it does relieve the pressure of the full-length episodes when I don't necessarily have a book to talk about. I realized that's something that kind of kept me from coming on to my podcast because I was like, I haven't read anything. I haven't done anything. I always felt kind of bad and guilty about that. And so I'm like, okay, well, the solution to that is to separate out the book part and just to do like little review episodes. And that way that book can get all of the attention, and then if I want to do like a cluster of books, save that for the bigger podcast. So yeah, I that's just kind of what the idea behind that is, and I'm gonna try that out with Terece's Fingertips. I figured Fingertips would be the perfect book to try that out on because Terece was actually the first guest that I interviewed on the podcast. So why not her be the first book to try out this new system with? So I'm really excited about that. And then also, so I've been trying to educate myself more about what's going on in our world. So I do have the 100 Years War on Palestine. I'm going to be slowly working through this book. I haven't started it just yet. Again, the hospital, but I kind of like the feeling of having three nonfiction books open at one time because then it's like a really nice palate cleanser. So yeah, that's basically it in terms of like, you know, the basic stuff of what's going on, what I've been up to. I while we were, waiting for the leaf blowers to end, I actually hopped onto TikTok. If you're not following me over there, that's Oh That Girl Reads, just like it is over here. But I hopped onto TikTok and I was just making a bunch of different TikToks. It was so much fun. It was so silly. And I've been feeling a little bit more creative lately. It's just kind of hard. You put a lot of pressure on yourself. And I sat down and I thought to myself, like, what do I really want out of this podcast? Like, what do I want and what do I want to do? And I realized that you do a disservice to yourself when you're constantly trying to um I don't even think monetize is the word, but that's the only word I could think of. When you're trying to monetize your hobbies or you're trying to monetize something that makes you happy. And like I would love to have this podcast open me up to like different avenues, different doors, different events and things like that to bring me farther than I ever expected. But at the same time, at the root of it, I just want this to be mine. I want this to be a really fun, playful place for me. And I use that word a lot, playful. Like I love that word because I feel like that embodies my personality, but is a part of my personality that I don't get to share very often. The side of myself that's just playful, that's silly, that likes to be like super cutesy and things like that. Like there's so many parts of myself that I don't get to um that are kind of oppressed within me. And something that I heard recently on TikTok was like someone was like, how do you get over a crush? And this guy answered, he's like, did you realize that like when you have crushes, the easiest way to get over those situations or the easiest way to get over a breakup is to really think about what traits that other person had that are oppressed or suppressed within you. And as soon as you start to nurture and feed and give energy to those traits, you'll find that you get over that person or you move on from that person a lot quicker because you're still feeding those parts of yourself. And I was like, oh, and that made me think, I'm like, what are the things that I really feel like are suppressed within myself? And for me, like, I always say that it's my Leo rising wanting to come out and be forefront. But for me, like, I actually am someone who does like a lot of attention. Like, I am someone who likes to um, play with like beautifying myself or like just being like really silly and out there and outgoing, even though I can be kind of reserved. But I say that's the Pisces in me. But I can be pretty reserved, but I do care about those things. I care about beauty, I care about being seen, I care about my appearance. And I think that's something that the podcast gave me. This is going to sound really vain to certain people, but it's the fact that I'm talking and you're listening. It's the fact that I'm getting attention. It's the fact that I get to talk about something that, I really, really care about. And it's something that you might really, really care about. And you might listen and want to hear what I want to say. And then you respond and then I respond and then we're having this engagement. I like the fact that, I can express my full personality comfortably here, and it gives me that boldness to express outside. So, this might be like one of the shortest podcasts ever in terms of Oh That Girl Reads, but when you log off or you stop listening to this podcast, I would really love for you to just kind of sit and think about what are the traits within yourself that you would really, really love to see more often, that you would love to nurture, that are suppressed right now. Because I tell you, like, that is going to give you a certain level of energy and a certain level of self-esteem that you would not be aware that you were missing. And so, like, if you want to be seen more often, or if you want to be more focused on your beauty, or if you want to be more outgoing, or if you want to be more caring towards others, or if you want to take up the stage a little bit, if you want to be the center of attention, or if you want, just like think about what you want, you know, and I want you to actually like engage with those things and do those things just for yourself. But yeah, so that's me this week. I look forward to talking to you on Sunday. I know this podcast episode wasn't super perfect, but I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for being here and for rejoining me. And I'll see you. Oh, remember to read what you love and DNF the rest. And I will see you next time. Bye. So long, everyone, and thank you so much for being here with me today. If you want to keep up with Oh That Girl Reads, make sure to follow us over on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Remember, read what you love and DNF the rest. I'll see you next time. Bye.